On a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXITV Live. This week starring very special guest, Mr. Steve Barden. Let me get that chat room open. There you guys are. I gotta tell you guys, I'm gonna not put any of this on Steve. I was so mortified last week when we tried to do this episode that I've wanted to do for so long. The software I use is way more complicated than Zoom. It's way more complicated than StreamYard. It's basically like the difference between using GarageBand when you get a Mac or using Logic to its fullest extent. Similar stuff, but vast difference, and steep learning curve. Well, as it turns out, there was no learning curve that I didn't know. It's the manufacturer of said software decided to do some updates and not tell anybody that the updates removed buttons, removed links, removed functions, consolidated functions. So the way I would normally have done what I was about to do last week was absolutely just not doable. And it took 36 hours for customer or tech support to get back to me on it. Anyway, it's solved. One minor thing I'd like to say before we get going today, because we are going to analyze developmental arcs and edit points. And so you guys who don't know exactly how to construct a cue, you're going to learn a lot today. The one thing I really wanted to do was to be able to stop and start the music in particular places so that you could see where we were at, which on the waveform. You will still be able to see that. Unfortunately, one of the workarounds I had to do to accomplish this is just put these guys, the waveforms, in the scene, so when I make it live, the music starts, and there's really no way to stop and start it gracefully. So Steve is going to talk us through each cue as it's going on, saying stuff like, okay, see, we're coming up to an edit point here. Notice how the middle section is a little more, is fuller and maybe more dynamic than the first third of the cue, that sort of stuff. And then hopefully we'll have enough time at the end where we can do Q&A on this stuff. But what I don't want to do is get involved in Q&A on each of the cues, because if we do, we'll never get to the second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth. I know you guys. What can I say? By the way, for those of you who are going to watch this that don't know, Steve Barden is a highly accomplished score composer, cue composer, instrumental composer. That's probably the best broad way to describe his talents. He's had tons and tons of placements. He is a much smarter musician than I ever was back when I was still playing, very intellectual, and he's got it in his hands and in his brain. He is also a library owner, and maybe even more importantly, he is the author of this book, Where'd It Go? Oh my goodness. Well, that didn't work out.
That's my secret book.
It was just sitting there in the frame, and when I hit go, it disappeared. Well, let's try the next book. Same thing. Oh my gosh. I hope we don't have this problem with the music when it's time.
So this will be a very short episode.
It could be. Well, at least that came back. Oh my God! Now I'm all stressed out about it. I don't know why those books disappeared. I tested them, used them. You saw them. I saw them. Wow, that is weird. Try one more time. Very weird. All right. Well, we'll go back to the studio here while I finish yakking. Please, dear God, let these pieces of music play. Okay, there's that. Anyway, Steve is the author of this book, which I truly believe that if you want to be in the music for film and television business, you've got to own this book. It's unbelievably good. It's extremely comprehensive. What's the title of the second book? Because I can't see it right now.
The newest book.
Not the newest one, the second one.
Oh, the newest book? Oh, oh my God, deconstructing writing music, production music for TV.
And the new one, which literally just came out, is called
String ostinato patterns.
All right, and that is available on Amazon as of today.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cross your fingers. There's everybody. Yes, Jesse Peck says it's a really good book. It is a really good book. All right. The first thing we're going to listen to, hopefully, I'm going to be so upset if it doesn't work. Those book titles just literally vanished out of the frames they were sitting in as I hit go. I hope the same thing doesn't happen to the music. What is the first thing we're going to hear is the tension cue. Do you want to do anything to set this one up, Steve?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to start with this one. This is a particularly good cue. It's a tension suspense cue. The composer is Elna Myberg, the marvelous Mrs. Myberg. It has a terrific arc. She does some really fabulous development throughout the piece. There are edit points. It's just like a perfect model for how to write a cue.
All right. So Steve's going to talk us through this. Please, everybody say a little prayer, because I'm about to make this go live. Yes. Comes an edit point.
So we've increased the tension here. We've added a few more instruments. Here's another one. A low piano note. Just adds more drama. And ready for the next edit point.
Right, it's gotten bigger, more dramatic, more intense.
Extremely.
Had to give her a little love on that one. I mean, for those of you who are looking at the waveform, you can see basically three distinct sections. The third section is kind of like 3.5, if you will. There's like almost like a little coda part attached to it. But for people who are wondering what an edit point is, you can see them. I wish that I was able to use my pointer to show you where they are, but you can see those very steep valleys that are roughly
right there.
Right.
and there.
Good job, Steve. I knew that it would be awesome to have you on the show to explain this stuff. Anything else you want to add about this?
Well, first of all, let's just talk about the structure, because typically in production music, you know, we've gotten so used to an A-B-A format, an A section, a B section that's slightly different, and then come back to another A section, similar to the first, but you've added some things. You've made it more emphatic. You've increased the, the volume or the energy and whatever. This particular piece is interesting because to me, this is more like 3-act trailer piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially one thematic piece, one theme all the way through, but within each section, after an edit point, it builds and gets bigger and bigger. The first section is really ambient. The second section adds more instrumentation. It really increases the energy. And then by the final act, it's just kicking ass. It's brilliant. And then it tapers off, and we come out with a little, a tail ending, which is just, really lovely. And any of those 3 sections, or the fourth, if you call it 4 sections, can be broken out by the edit points. So the next thing is we should talk about what is an edit point and why do you need to have those here.
Okay.
So, and what an editor needs is a place to be able to cut your piece of music at any random part in the music. It has to fit the scene that they're editing in some way. So with this particular piece, you have 3 energy levels. So an editor might want to use the ambient part first. And then it builds from there. The second part is a little bit more energy. The third part is, greater energy. So depending how they need it to fit the scene. Now, the second part of that is that, well, but is it long enough? Or, is it too short? Is it too long? And then this is where stingers are going to come into play. So for me, the idea of an edit point is not where an editor is going to end the piece, but where they're going to start for a new section.
Right.
If they want to start with the middle section, with the second part, they're going to start it at that point, okay? Would we look at the first section, the way it ends, could they use that to end the track for the scene? Probably not, because that ending is not really designed as an ending, and that's what the stinger is designed for. It's a specific small composition that an editor can place that at the end of that section. I think a smart editor would, first of all, they determine how long, how much music they need. Let's say it's 18 seconds. I don't know how long this first part is off the top of my head. But they would probably start with the stinger, put it in the place where it needs to end. Then they're going to take that first section, find a place to cut it, and if they're a good musician editor, they will do it on a bar line if possible, or worst case, on just a downbeat. A bad edit is where they'll cut it just somewhere in the middle of the beat and then just tag on the stinger.
That's
that's
done
not,
by video editors that have no musical inclination whatsoever, and you hear those sometimes.
And that is definitely a problem. Yeah. So you get a guy like Agio, who is not only an editor, but he's a composer, and he knows how to design the pieces when he's writing. But even if it's not a piece of its own, he knows how to combine the endings and make that section fit.
He is actually coming to the office on Wednesday, and we're doing a pre-record from when I'm out of town of him walking me through every minute of an editor's life from the minute they get the phone call, we'd like you to be the editor on this new series. And we're actually going to look much more at the video editor's perspective and talk not a whole bunch about the music, because we've covered that on previous TAXITVs and the Road Rally with him. He's actually become a very close friend of mine, so any excuse for the two of us to get together, but make a little contact, go out for dinner, yay. But he is so smart, and I am highly excited about teaching you guys watching this and other TAXITVs to not just think like a musician. Think about how you as a musician can help the people that use your music. That is really important.
Exactly. As a production music composer, you need to think about these things, edit points in particular, arcs. This has a terrific musical arc. It starts small, it gets big, and then finally resolves. But you also need to consider how the track could be used to end. And I know, like, talking about stingers wasn't actually part of this episode, but I do want to mention it briefly. At the rally last year, during one of the listening panels, one of the panelists, and I'm going to say it was Bob Mayer, but don't quote me on that. He asked, why don't composers have two stingers, a long stinger and a short stinger?
Yeah,
And
it wasn't Bob Mayer because he wasn't there last year. I don't know who asked that.
Okay, I wish I could remember who it was. So the point was a short stinger is a stinger that ends on a button ending. It's a very short. If I was writing a song called "Shave and a Haircut," the stinger would be da 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 da, and that last note is your button ending. Okay, the long ending is the last note sustains out, not almost indefinitely. So that shave and a haircut long stinger would be da 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 da, and it would fade down gradually and naturally. Now, what an editor would use those two different ones for, as I said, they would figure out where the music needs to be and how it's going to end, and maybe it needs to end on a button ending, okay? Because there's action on the screen, and they want to mimic that. Now, remember, as production music composers, we're not writing to picture. We, as a traditional film composer, they would have all the timings, and they would know exactly where to hit the marks, and they would be able to hit that ending exactly. Well, an editor, in turn, actually becomes the film composer, and they have to kind of work these things out. So, I mean, let's say they take that button ending, and then they have to one of the sections on hopefully a bar line, to make it musical, or at least on a beat, again, to make it musical. But it may end up with that button ending, the track, that edit might be a half second too short or a whole second too short. If the requirement is not to hit that short ending to fit the match the scene, that's where a long stinger is really useful, because then they could cut it an entire bar early, add the stinger, and you have this long sustained note that they can fade it out to fit the ending exactly. So it's a very useful tool for the editor. Do you have that graphic we could put up?
Well, let's see if it actually shows up. Based on what happened with the book covers, I'm not that hopeful. Oh, it's showing a black frame. You saw it. I literally showed it to you.
It went well in rehearsal, folks.
It really did. And trust me, I've never done an episode in 15 years of doing TAXITV that had so much prep time go into it as this one you're watching today. I'm going to try and make it live, but it's not going to show up. I can already tell.
Okay. Well, hopefully my description explained what I was talking about between a long and short stinger. And so now I've sort of adopted that strategy, and that's all we're providing is long and short stingers, because it's just a useful tool.
Something that I contributed for the benefit of all mankind was differentiated, because some people call it a button ending, some people call it a stinger, and a stinger is technically a button, but it's a longer version, as you said. But I also find that stingers are usually more emphatic. Like if you had a string quartet and they ended on the tonic on the beat, that would be a button. But if you had an orchestra doing it, that would be a stinger. So I say a button is more, this is just me, but I am the world's foremost expert on all things music. and modesty, by the way. Now, but I find it very practical to think of a button ending as a period. There's an end. It's not a fade. It's a boom button. A stinger, or a sting, as some people call it, is an exclamation point. It hits harder. It lasts longer. It's usually bigger and more grandiose. So that I've had people respond well to that explanation over the years that might not be composers that write charts. They're just like singer-songwriters that are getting into doing some instrumental stuff for film and TV, and they don't know the difference between a button ending and a stinger. So there's my explanation.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you understand the intent of these small musical pieces and how they should be and how they can be used, that's really important.
Yep.
So I think that's all I have to cover on this.
Oh, hang on, my phone's ringing. It's Juilliard calling. They want me to come and teach a course on buttons and stingers. All right, this next one, is this you playing on the rock one?
It is not, but I'll take credit for it.
Wow.
No, this is Andre Avino.
Okay. Very easy to see the edit point going into this section.
Yeah, completely obvious. So we did 2 A sections, a B section at the edit point, and now we're back to an A section.
A little unusual in its construction, but very usable. Is this a C section?
I think it's the same as the B. Now here's the C. We've extended the B section, added a little bit more development.
And here comes the edit point.
And another break point. No drums. Nice edit choice. This is actually a D.
Wow. Done by the guitar players from 38 Special, no doubt.
Yeah, it has that feel, right?
Certainly the sound. Yay. I want to bring up something about this one, which is you were definitely in the room for this 2018, 2019, somewhere around there, right before COVID. We had a video editor named Laurel Ostrander, who I absolutely adored. She was a great teacher. She really made it all easy to digest. And I asked her at the end, I had her back a second year. I think it was the second year. I said, Laurel, is there one little tip you can give people that makes an editor go, ooh, I might want to use this the second they hear it? And she goes, yeah, you know what? If it starts out with a cool little drum turn or a cool guitar lick that catches my attention, I go, oh, that's a great point to come in on that scene. I'm going to listen to the rest. So I use Keith LeBrant's TAXITV theme is a great example of that, which you're going to hear right now for a couple of seconds. Boom, bada boom, boom. That's what she's talking about. Or it could be the guitar figure that this composer is playing. So if there's one thing everybody should remember, it's like when you're doing cues, don't worry about a 30-second intro to get people in the mood. No editor's going to listen to 30 seconds worth of intro
No.
to get. The only mood they're going to get in is a bad one because they don't know what your freaking cue is all about yet. But if you've got, it's like, oh, that would be great when the door opens up. That drum piece could play, or switching from this scene to that scene. That little. So
yeah, it's absolutely true, and I actually kind of discourage long intros or almost any intros at all when I was doing a lot of dramedy music. I didn't use intros at all. I just started right in on it. So it really kind of depends on the style of music, what's expected. with a rock tune, yeah, drum fill pickup like that is, perfect. If you were doing a blues track, you might want to do a 5-4-1 turnaround just to get you into the song. It just depends on the style.
God, I've never seen the chat room so quiet, which I appreciate. That means everybody's actually paying attention today rather than talking about which brand of beer they're drinking while the show's going on. Yay! Good job, you guys. Also, I'm going to attempt to play this cue a second time. I have no idea how it's going to work because the frame it's sitting in on my timeline is blank right now. But I'm going to try. We'll see what happens. Because I'd like to point out a couple of drum hits that would make for good entrances and could be something you could edit out and bring up to the top of this to make Laurel Ostrander, my editor friend, happy. Nope. Not going to play it a second time. All right. Well, all that said, let's move on to the next one. I'm telling you, every time I select a new one of these frames and hit that go button, it's like a great test of my antiperspirant, as I was describing it to Steve before. The things I do for you guys. All right, here we go. This one is an orchestral cue, which, by the way, anything with drums is infinitely easier to add or edit than a lot of orchestrals, because orchestrals have a lot of hangover of sounds, decay. Usually they have hall reverb on them, which, if you might find a perfect place to cut, but maybe the reverb's not in that same moment that it was. You have to think about something that I was taught very early in my career, which was explained to me as the law of reciprocity. If back when we used to cut 1/4-inch tape or 2-inch tape, is what's on the right reflective of what's on the left of your cut. So think about that. Sometimes you can get away with it when the stuff doesn't reciprocate, but most of the time it's better if it does. All right, here is an orchestral cue, I hope.
Don't play it yet.
Too late. And I can't stop it, sorry. Who did this one, Steve? Wow. You're better than I thought. That's beautiful.
Big edit point.
Drive a truck through that baby. Wow. Hold on. And that, my friends, is why you could call Steve Barden a professional. That is like perfection. Great job.
I just wanted to describe what this is, first of all. So this was designed to be, it's a 1950s movie, monster movie style of music. I had a placement a year or two ago on Saturday Night Live, and it was for they were doing an Exorcist sketch, and they used a horror cue of mine. And it was like a light bulb just went off, and I just realized that show and shows like that all of their sketches are using production music.
Mm-hmm.
The only time they have their band is when the show is opening, during commercials. So this was intended to be a track that would probably be used for, a sketch like on an SNL or source music. A scene in a movie where they'd be sitting in a movie theater or watching an old TV show. Or the jukebox is the other thing, but this would not be a jukebox piece of music.
No, this would be
so
great
that was
for a family sitting in the family room. The parents are out to dinner, the kids have built a tent, and they're watching some scary ass movie, and this is the music that's playing on their TV set as the source.
Exactly. Yeah. So the structure of this is really kind of through composed. The sections don't really repeat. It's not a standard production music format, but it's okay because the intention of this cue was to be what this is. It was supposed to resemble a movie score. Now there are spots where you can see there are some edit points, and there's the one right in the middle that you could drive the truck through, as Michael said. But there are some good spots all the way through that you could pick this up at any point and start it up. So that's all I have to say on this one.
Okay, great. We're gonna have a lot of Q&A time. Okay, so the next one we're going to is Dramedy. And if I remember, it scares me. Every time I highlight the frame I'm going to play next, it goes black, and I do not know why. It just scares the what out of me. Anything you want to say to set this Dramedy cue up before I hit play?
Not particularly. This is a pretty traditional dramedy type of cue. The composer is Peter Cole.
Great. Hopefully, here we go. Yay.
Now, obviously, you see the second half is going to be quite loud compared to the first half.
And that's what an editor would look at maybe before they even hit play, probably before they hit play, or certainly by the first couple of bars going, well, I like the melody. Does it get bigger? Oh, look at the waveform. Yes, it does. Because I need big for this scene. Delicate won't work.
There was a slight pause there going into this next section that could be edited into an edit point. They don't have to be huge gaps, like driving a truck through it. It's just like taking a breath that, an editor is able to chop, and it doesn't sound like, you're going to fade into this next section. Drive a truck through this one, though.
Yeah. By the way, for orchestral music, having that little gap is important, more important than on rock music, for instance. Just cut on a beat, cut on a kick drum, cut on a snare drum.
Often, yeah. And here's the point. It's the same thematic material, but now we've just added a little bit more energy to it. And it's clearly louder. And this dramedy was considered dark dramedy, so it's more a dramatic setting. And you could hear those last few beats that was clearly going to be the stinger.
So
it was different from anything else.
Edit, or you could get out on either ending depending on what your shot or your edit was. So the composer has given the editor flexibility, which is part of the name of the game.
Exactly, depending on what the energy of the scene is that they're trying to capture. And this piece works well for that.
All right. Next, we have Bluegrass. Is this you?
It is not me. This is composer Paul Smith.
All right. Anything you want to say to set it up?
is bluegrass.
Excellent work. Boy, am I glad I had you on the show today. This is why Steve and I get along. We understand each other's sarcasm so well. All right, here we go. This is Bluegrass. Also easy to cut because there's a lot of percussives, the pick hitting the strings makes it easy to cut. The banjo nuts, each of those is almost like a snare hit you could cut on.
Exactly, yeah. Easy edit points on this. Same structure, A-A-D-A, but we're bringing in additional instruments by the melody. Big ending. And I believe all the instruments were real. I'm almost positive.
That one would be I don't know, I've mentioned this before, but maybe not every single person watching the show doesn't know that in the years before I started Taxi, I actually was an audio post. I spent the first, 10, 15 years of my career making records, working as an audio engineer in rock and roll studios. But I had a lot of orchestral recording, did some like Broadway-ish type of stuff. So pretty well-rounded background in audio engineering. But I moved to New York and worked at the largest audio post for TV and commercials facility anywhere in the world at the time, and was very fortunate to learn from the best guys in the industry who thought my record career was a joke. That's like, oh, that's the easy stuff. And I learned so much from them, and I'm so grateful for it. But you don't realize till you're sitting in that chair and have to make the puzzle pieces fit how important things like edit points and stingers are. So that's why I'm making a big push for you guys to understand it, for the newbies who see those phrases in the listings and don't know what they are. This is for you. For people who are intermediate composers and don't remember frequently enough to include these things in your tracks, but otherwise you're compositionally talented, but maybe not structurally sound. This is a reminder for you. And for those of you who are incredibly good, like Steve is, you really don't need to be here for this episode today.
I'm going to go.
It's just a refresher course. See you, Steve. Thanks for dropping in. By the way, pick up a copy of that book. I'm serious when I tell you that. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, a lot of folks that come from the songwriting world, and they hear about production music, and they go, oh yeah, they're using indie songs on all these different TV shows, and you still have to kind of adhere to production music standards, to really make it placeable. So understanding edit points in particular are really crucial. Developmental arcs is crucial as well, because your job is to give the editor enough choices, too many choices, so they'll find a way to use your piece of music. If you're just going to repeat a 4-bar loop for 2.5 minutes, your track's probably not going to get used.
Even if it's an amazing loop.
Right.
We get some upset members because they send stuff in that they put so much care into coming up with a great melody, great selection of instruments, great balance among the instruments in the mix. Everything about it is great, but it just lays there like a lox from beginning to end and just keeps repeating the same thing over and over every 8 bars. There's nowhere for an editor to go. If they don't hear what they need in those 8 bars, then they go to something else.
Yeah, and that's getting back to intros. If you're just sort of meandering on an intro for a while, uh, editors when they're looking up tracks to use, they're going to listen to the beginning and they're going to know within 5 seconds if your track is going to work or not. So really try to keep the intros down. I mean, even doing songs, vocal songs with lyrics, I would recommend keeping intros down to a minimum for sure.
I want to get your opinion on this. People are obsessed with lufs and loudness and brick wall waveforms, to which I would say if I were still sitting in the chair as an audio post engineer and I pulled something up and I saw a waveform that was a brick wall, I would very likely go on to something that had a waveform that looked like this, where I could see, oh yeah, there's a lot of developmental arc stuff going on. There are edit points in there, rather than listening to 90 seconds or 2 minutes and 15 seconds of something that appears to be a brick wall and I don't know anything about it because you have to move so quickly making those choices to meet your deadlines. People want to believe because they create the music that everybody's going to listen with the same attentiveness and passion that they do when they listen to their own music. But when you're hauling butt trying to make a deadline and finish up a show and get it over to NBC at 11 p.m. because it's going to air tomorrow morning, you don't have the luxury of time. It's like, wow, this is a really cool, interesting. Wow, I really like what he did with that little guitar lick there. None of that stuff is happening.
Yeah, dynamic range is really important. Of course, it depends on the style of music that you're writing. Um, but I mean, if you look at the waveform of this track, you see some real peaks and valleys here. You know, there's I don't know, probably maybe an 8 to 10 dB dynamic range from the quietest note to the loudest note. That's quite useful because it makes your music musical. It brings it to life. If everything is compressed to death at the same level, I do get a lot of tracks that come in that are not quite brick wall, but it's super hot, and I have to bring the levels down. And what ends up happening is that it gets compressed, so the lowest volume waveforms are about the same as the high. So then you've just lost all your dynamic range. So I just, I ask people to give me reasonable levels. Don't give me, super quiet. Some are reasonable in the middle, and then I'll, when it gets mastered, we'll sort it out. But give me something to work with. You're hurting yourself. If you, watch your shows, and if you ever hear your music on a TV show, first of all, you'll barely hear it because it's way down behind dialogue, and you'll be very disappointed. And that's where you got to test when you're mixing. Play your stuff really quiet because in those low levels, all you're going to hear is little hi hats or some high pitched instruments, and all your other low range instruments disappear. So you need to think about usage, and it's way different than record production.
It's completely different, but I've been on a tear since the middle of 2025 till today to get people to understand that they are not in the record industry. People are not looking for hits. They're not looking for an amazing song. You've heard me say this till I'm blue in the face on TAXITV. If you were the Beatles doing Hey Jude, they are still not going to call back the writers, the actors, the set design people, the location people, the lighting people, the greenskeepers, the catering people. They're not going to bring 250 people back together, not to mention get rewriting the scene, getting the actors to all come back at the same time as they can get the crew and everything else because they loved a song. They love a song because it helps the scene. So just saying that. Hard to get out of that.
The music has to elevate. Yeah, the music has to elevate the scene, no matter whether it's a song or an instrumental piece of music. They're going to pick your music because it works, not because you're friends with the editor's sister. It has to work for the scene.
Yeah.
I keep saying this. We're not creating fine art here. We're producing widgets, okay? And it can still be great music. It can still be wonderful production, but you have to understand what we're doing. Why are we creating this music, and how is it going to be used? If you want to create fine art, then lovely, do it. Get your music performed on the concert stage. But you just need to be aware of how this music is going to be used ultimately.
I just said this in an episode that I worked on. I came in yesterday and did a pre-recorded episode with Dean Kripane, and we were talking about this very subject. That you're right, you are talking widgets and not fine art, but the widgets can be fine art, and by working on the widgets, your skills improve for speed, for production choices, for compositional choices. All that stuff gets finely tuned because you're doing it every day at a faster pace. So when you go to work on your fine art, which, maybe you get fortunate enough that you can do production music from 9 to 5, 9 to 6 every day, have dinner with your family, read the kids a story, put them to bed, go down in the basement back to your studio and create fine art for the sake of creating fine art. They're not mutually exclusive. And then some people get to retire to the desert, Palm Springs area, like Steve. I'm so jealous of him. He's out there. You can do whatever you want every day of your life. Oh, look at that. He's oh, man. That was funny. I don't know, but now I've got a craving for olives. All right. Let's see. We've got one more to go, I think, right?
Yeah. Thank goodness.
It's a neoclassical, but we still have an hour and 13 minutes left. Okay.
We're good.
All right.
Good. No, so neoclassical trailer music. This is Kimberly Who.
Who?
Or How. Guess who? How?
Who's on third? Oh.
Yes.
All right, here we go. I love this piece. Pirates of the Caribbean. You can see the sectionality in this thing so beautifully just by looking at the waveform. If I were an editor, I would sit down and listen to this whole thing because I can see I've got 4 choices here.
3-act structure. That was the first act. Now we're leading into the second act. We had that downer. Increase the intensity.
You could use that bass slide as an endpoint for a scene.
Now the energy's really picking up. This is the fourth act.
You can see the conductor on the sound stage breaking a sweat, getting frantic near the end of this thing. But it was probably all done in the box, and it's just a beautifully done piece.
It's excellent. She's such a great writer. Have you met Kimberly?
I don't believe I
She's
have. What's her last name?
she's just HOU. I don't know if it's who or how. She she's just tiny little girl. She's just so unassuming, and she writes this great trailer music. It's unbelievable.
She's been to the Road Rally, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think she asked a question one time. I remember there were, I'm assuming by her last name, she's Asian.
Hmm.
So she was in the line of people waiting to ask a question at the Road Rally. And I remember thinking she's a little wisp of a person. And whatever question she asked definitely told me she was a serious musician. This is incredibly good work.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. I'm going to go back to the book covers for a minute and see if I can. If I go to this, there we are back in the studio. That's the weirdest thing. Those book covers, literally, as soon as I hit the button, they just disappeared. Oh, look at you. I bet you went and got a copy. No?
I don't actually have my book yet. It hasn't been delivered, but this is a mock-up
Of the cover?
of the
Move
of
it
the
to
cover.
your right.
Oh my God, this is so confusing.
I know. Do you know how hard it is to be the executive producer of TAXITV? All the things I've had to learn, like left is now right. Oh, man. All right.
Anyway, that's the new book. It's
String
available now.
ostinatos. You know, honestly, I gotta say, I've been involved in the music industry since I was 19 years old. My entire adult life has been the music industry. And like I said, I've recorded full orchestras. I've done an 80-piece orchestra live with a 100-voice choir. I think I've done, more types of recording than most engineers get to do if they're just a rock and roll person or just somebody that does a lot of hip hop. I was very fortunate that I got to do a lot of stuff. But all that said, I'd heard the word ostinato, but I honestly didn't know what it was because I myself am not a composer. And then about 6 months before last year's Road Rally, our annual conference that we do in Los Angeles, kind of a big deal conference, I saw, oh gosh, what's his name? Guy from Spain, the composer, did a thing at the rally last year.
Oh, was it Leonardo or something? Oh, what's
No,
his name?
no, I invited DiCaprio to come to the rally, but he didn't show.
I know
Anyway,
who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
he does the best video commercials for his software and courses. And he did one on ostinato show. He had an ostinato pack. And he did before and afters. And the befores of these pieces were like, wow, that's really well done. And then he would add the ostinato, and you go, okay, the thing before without the ostinato now sounds amateurish. So I've become a huge fan of ostinatos. I hear them now all the time because I know what they're called. Before I used to just think that's a great piece of music. Now I know why it's a great piece of music. So I'm thrilled that you've got this book available showing people how to create ostinatos.
Well, yeah, let me explain how this came about.
Okay.
About 4 years ago, I was writing a lot of trailer music. And of course, ostinato patterns are highly prevalent in trailer music. It's the engine that moves, that propels the music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, of course, you listen to a lot of music and try to figure out how these patterns are used, and I did a lot of research, and I just could not find really any examples of how to write ostinatos other than very simple arpeggios. And so I started developing some of my own, and I started starting with simple patterns and then elaborating on those, and then taking it to the next step. And then I challenged myself, can I write 100 of these? And I did. And I ended up releasing 2 YouTube videos of these patterns. And there was no talking, there was no descriptions. I just played the patterns, and it showed the piano roll on the screen. And I just thought, well, if somebody wants to use this pattern, they can, pause the video and just look at the notes on the piano roll and just copy that. And I got a lot of really positive feedback, and a lot of guys are going, where can I buy these MIDI files for this? And not that I'm against MIDI files, but I just thought, I'm an educator at heart. I'm not a capitalist. If I can do MIDI files. I can give you MIDI files, just like my dear departed Aunt Martha would say. Give a man a MIDI file and he'll write an ostinato, for a day. But if you teach him how to write ostinatos, he'll have ostinatos, unlimited ostinatos.
I had unlimited ostinatos, but I went to the doctor. The surgery was only like 20 minutes, outpatient, didn't hurt a bit.
Good, excellent. So so eventually I finally decided to put it in book form, and the book really it talks about the theory of why these patterns work, and the goal is to teach you how to write ostinato patterns on your own, develop, extend them and develop your own, and make them your own, personal musical signature. And that's what that is. The book, I finished the book a year ago, and it took the publisher that long to get it. It's distributed by Hal Leonard, so you can buy it on Amazon and digital outlets, but it'll be in bookstores soon. I don't believe we're going to do a Kindle version of it though. So anyway, buy the book. Thank you.
All right. Liz, if you could search for that book, or maybe you already put it in, I just didn't see it in the chat. If you search Steve Barden ostinato on Amazon, you'll find a link to it. And if you would pop that in the chat, as well as the second book, which was
Deconstructing Production Music. Let me grab that real quick.
Right, so there should be 3 books under Steve Barden's name, and if you could put the links into all. Do you guys, we've got a half an hour left, which is a really long time in the world of TAXITV. We could end the show now, and Steve could start drinking early. Or we could...
Too late. Too late.
You know what they say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Or if we have any sort of consensus on which one of those cues you'd like to hear again because you've got more questions or would like to know more about it, name the
That's
cue.
a good idea.
Yeah, well, let's see if I can get them to actually play. I'm scared to death because the frames are showing up black. I'm waiting for answers from the peanut gallery. It's 2 a.m. somewhere, that's true. The exorcism thing, okay. Maybe show us one with ostinatos and talk through it. Do we have one with ostinatos? Yeah, the last one we just played had ostinatos, right?
The neoclassical piece, yeah definitely ostinatos. Yeah, that's a good piece. Let's listen to that one again.
Well, let's hope we can.
Let's hope.
I'm telling you, I'm so fed up with this software, but I tried really hard to find anything that was better, and lots of recommendations, but nothing better. All right, here we go.
Ooh, promising.
I'm going to bring the level up a little more on this one just because I can. Imagine this without the ostinatos.
It's a little different because this is strictly strings. Well, primarily strings.
Yeah.
Often, trailer music, you have a lot of brass going on and a lot of heavy drums going all the way through it. In fact, the melody is sort of made up from the ostinatos themselves. It's not an ostinato underlying with a melody on top.
All of it is ostinatos. Somebody's asking, can you pinpoint the ostinatos? The whole thing is ostinatos.
Yeah, basically. Here is the ostinatos, but then now there's a melody above.
I'm going to bring the level down so you can talk over it. All right, I'm going to go back and field some of the questions that you guys have had. This one's from MMS 5087. What's the biggest thing that makes it a three-part trailer? Like, does it need to have a theme throughout? I could answer that one, but I'm going to defer to Steve because he's my guest and I respect my guests.
Yeah, it's really smart to have some thematic material that carries all the way through it. But, depending on the style of trailer music, because often the first act is very atmospheric. So there's often not really a lot of melody. But by the time you get into the second act, you've started a lot of movement. You have drums going on, and then you have your melody. By the time you get into the third act, it's sort of the same as the second act, but with just a lot more energy. You're bringing in more instruments, you're doubling like crazy. Now you have strings and brass playing the melody lines, and trying to find something that's cohesive to pull it all together. Don't write your acts, particularly the second and third acts, so that they sound like two different trailer pieces. They really should be related in some way. But the energy levels pick up. You used the term melody light. I would say the second act, would be like melody light. Fewer notes, half notes and whole notes as opposed to quarter notes and eighth notes. But by the time you get into the third act, then it gets busier. But again, based on the style of the genre of trailer music that you're working on.
There's been such an evolution over the last 12, 13, 14, 15 years in trailer music. At some point, I knew the heads of two of the trailer music houses and had been out to dinners with them, been to their offices for meetings, had them come to Taxi, what have you. And I realized that what was going on in the world of trailer music at the time was above the pay grade for the majority of our members. So I didn't go too far down that road because it would have been a wasted effort. And by that, I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form to be an insult, saying that our members are, a bunch of uneducated people. But back then, you had to be an orchestral composer, arranger. You had to be able to chart music. You had to be able to conduct a live orchestra in the studio because nobody would use stuff that was in the box. And if you even mentioned the L word, meaning music library, in front of people working on trailers, you'd be laughed out of the industry. That was a little more than a decade ago. Then they started
right?
softening up as sample libraries kept getting better and better, and people learned how to use them better and better. And every now and then, stuff they'd say, well, even though it's in the box, can you throw in some live instrumentation? They wouldn't be, I'm guessing a lot of editors cutting trailers wouldn't be able to tell you, oh, that's a real violin or that's a real section there, because libraries have gotten so good and people using them have become very talented at using them well. However, it got to the point where they realized from a budgetary standpoint, gee, if we don't have to budget them to bring 30 pieces onto a soundstage and record this, we can pay them less money. So yeah, that stuff in the box sounds pretty good. And now there are libraries that are nothing but trailer libraries. Here's the part that blows my mind, and I don't know that I've ever shared this in 15 years of doing TAXITVs, which is, it used to be in the days where they would cut live instruments, live musicians in a real studio, where they would have charts and copyists, all that stuff that it takes to pull off a great session like that. It was extremely common for the editors working on the trailers to make the first act come from a piece that Steve did 4 years ago. The second act would come from yet another piece in another library. It wasn't even the same musicians, and then another piece from somewhere else. And they would cut these things up because they actually worked against picture. So 3 people would get paid for their music being used in a trailer. But I've noticed now that it's much more common to go back to using a whole piece like Kimberly's piece here, because it's just so good and so usable and workable that I listen to trailers. My wife and I try and do a movie a week. A little less of that seems lately, but when we go, I am the trailer guy. I'm sitting there making notes. Sometimes I've even been known to write stuff on a napkin, in the theater. I listen to end title credit music all the time, even though usually it's something really spacey and ethereal and it goes on for 7 minutes while the credits are running. All that stuff is an education, and it's out there for free, and you can learn so much by just watching what other people have done and how it gets used. So there you go, a little education, maybe more than you wanted, on the evolution of trailer music specifically over the last 10 to 15 years. Changed a lot.
Yeah, it's evolving. It keeps changing, and you're right. Yeah, and this piece of Kimberly's, these are all virtual instruments. But I will say this, on any piece of music that you work in virtual instruments, if you can add a real live acoustic instrument, whether it's a single violin or a guitar or whatever, even like a shaker, that brings so much to the quality of the track. It's just something that fools the ear, because you're recording with a microphone and you've got air between the instrument and the microphone,
and flawed human timing and all that stuff.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's true. You're absolutely. It literally could be something as simple as a shaker could absolutely make something sound much more real. And people, it's like, I'm sitting here in front of my keyboard, shaker, boom. No.
Yep.
Go get one of those little legs and stand 6 inches from a microphone and do it imperfectly. Don't intentionally do it imperfectly, but I guarantee it will be imperfect. And add that to the track. And you're right, it fools the ear and it fools the brain. And that can be the difference between your piece getting used and somebody else's piece that didn't use a real shaker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely true for brass overdubs. Man, if you've got a friend that plays French horn, bring him in the studio, take whatever mic you want, because it really doesn't matter all that much. Take a reasonably good microphone, have the French horn bell blow into the corner of the room from about 6 feet away, and between the bell of that instrument and the corner, stick a mic, preferably an Omni, and record that and stick it on top of your brass in the box. And instantly, it will fool the brain into sounding like a real section. So, yep, thank you for reminding all of us of that. Other questions. Can you pinpoint, highlight, and oh, we did that already. I mean, the whole thing's ostinatos. What brass and strings did you use in the orchestral piece that was yours, Steve?
Oh gosh, I
Would you, if I play it again, would that be helpful?
no,
Okay.
because it's possible because of what we were doing with that. I might have used something like the Bernard Herrmann composer toolkit because that was created to sound like Bernard Herrmann music from the 50s. So it's highly possible that I used at least some of those instruments. But my go-to palette for orchestral instruments these days are what is the? Oh my God, I'm blanking out here. Move along.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Gloria Covington has a question. How would you describe the biggest difference between a cue and an instrumental composition which is not taken from a song?
I'm not sure how you define the difference. I mean, in my mind, an instrumental cue is just a piece of instrumental music that you're writing specifically as a production music cue.
Well, and it's got
Uh,
sectionality and all the things that we
eh,
talked about today, where in my opinion, again, not a composer, but in my opinion, an instrumental is structured more like a song with probably more of an intro and a verse and a pre-chorus,
well, I
maybe all those things.
I think what you're doing is you're actually you're taking a song and you're giving yourself another opportunity by taking away the vocal and replacing it with an instrument playing the melody, or as you like to call it, melody light, which makes a lot more sense because
And
if you're
why do
trying to
we?
duplicate
Right.
what the vocal is doing, it's just going to be too busy. And I almost like to call this like a Muzak version. And some people don't even know what music is anymore. But back in the day, you go in the grocery store, or the bank, or the elevator, and there would be Montavani, playing a Beatles song or a Rolling Stone song, with strings and harps and
101 strings does yesterday.
pretty much, yeah.
Um,
But that's sort of the idea of an instrumental version of a song.
Somebody asked, why do you have a napkin in a theater? Because I only go to a theater named Sinopolis that has like the really cool seats with the tray table that swings over, and you order the $13 cheeseburger and the $7 milkshake and get fat while you sit there for 2 hours watching a movie that hopefully is really good. But it does come with a napkin. And that's where I got the napkin. All right. Is that played real tempo? MMS 5087 asked, is that played real tempo time in the box, or do you cut it in half and then speed it up? I'm guessing I don't know when this question came in, so it's probably listening to that last cue.
Well, more than likely, it's recorded on a MIDI keyboard. Um, whether they're entering note in step mode, or they're drawing it in with a mouse, or they're performing it, they could slow it down depending on your skill as a keyboard player. I mean, there's a lot of ways to input music these days.
Um,
Excuse me
I'm
1 second.
okay.
I have a cat that needs to leave. Okay, bye.
All right. I think we're just about out of questions. I'm going back in time to see if there are any that I missed. Here's a question from Jesse Peck that I can answer as a retired audio engineer, record at high levels or low levels, talking about with your faders on the console. So are you talking about monitoring at high levels or low levels, or you're talking about the amount of input level you've got coming into your console to your tape machine, which would now be a hard drive vis-a-vis Pro Tools or whatever your DAW is? So my advice is it doesn't matter nearly as much in this day and age because of digital recording. As long as you've got some reasonable amount of signals showing up and making it into the track on Pro Tools, you'll be fine. Consider the dynamics of the instrument. If you're recording a tambourine, you could have that baby, because it is so incredibly dynamic and at frequencies that would just blow up any tube, tape machine, or whatever in front of it. If your meter was 3 inches tall, let's say an LED meter on a console was 3 or 4 inches tall, a tambourine would probably look like it's a quarter of an inch down at the bottom, and that would be plenty of level. If you're recording a very legato acoustic guitar piece with very little dynamics in it, record that hotter. But like I said, with digital, it doesn't, not that I've got a vast amount of experience, honestly, recording digitally. I am a 2-inch tape kind of guy. But that's why levels mattered on the input side back in the day, because you had tape hiss, you had the inherent noise coming out of whatever tube stuff you were running through. Could be transformer buzz, it could just be transistor noise, all those things. So you had a pretty high noise floor that you wanted to get above by putting as much signal on the audio tape as you could. Those considerations, while those physics aspects should not be forgotten in this day and age, they don't matter nearly as much. I hope that answers your question.
You just want to be careful with recording something at so low a level that, once you start bringing it up, you're bringing up the noise floor with it.
Right. Yeah, again, so much has to do with the dynamic of the instrument, the dynamic of the part, all those things. Looking for old questions. I think we're good. I think I've covered them all. All right. Wow, we can actually end this episode early. Start thinking about your questions for next week's episode. I haven't done an Ask Michael Anything episode in gosh knows how long. So I'm going to do that next week. It'll be much easier and require much less antiperspirant than setting up for this baby. Oh, a book, I think. Giveaway. Thank you, Liz. Liz just reminded me. We're giving away a book, and we've still got plenty of time. So we're going to give away a copy of this book, which I love. I'm not plugging the book because Steve's a friend, or I want to see him make an extra $4 on the sale of a book, or whatever it is.
You think it's $4?
No, actually, I do have some knowledge because I'm the publisher of Robin's books. Nobody, unless you're writing a Stephen King book, you're not going to retire on a book in the music industry, right?
That is true.
But you have to have this book if you want to make music for television. And film, but this book is primarily about TV. It's got everything. It's got the glossary. It's got legal stuff. It's got an explanation for any question you could have is answered in this book. And as I stated when I was doing a TAXITV recorded episode with Dean Kripane over the weekend, I never, ever, ever recommend a book that I haven't read cover to cover. So I'd like to give a special shout out to my friend Bobby Borg, who writes 3-inch thick books, because he really pisses me off when I sit down to read those babies, especially the one he did on finance for musicians. It was like 3 inches thick. It took me about 6 weeks to get through. All right, today I'm giving away Writing Production Music for TV. That is the book, and how we're going to do it is you are going to type in the letter B for book, because I haven't had any original thoughts today. And Liz is going to do the fickle finger of fate where she goes up and down the chat room list and just picks bink on somebody, and whoever that is gets it. Oh, you guys are anxious. You didn't even wait. It doesn't pay to be first, because the fickle finger will probably land somewhere in the middle 2/3. Okay, Liz, you're going to have to work harder on this one today. You have to scroll a little, because we have a bunch of anxious people. Somebody just, yay. Wow, I should have said, don't put your name in there 14 times. Liz just said,
disqualified.
Yeah, well, that person just sitting there going, bink, 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 bink. I'm sorry. I hate to be judgy out in a public venue, but come on, man. Marion keeps asking, which book was it? Marion, this is the third or fourth time I'm holding it up. It's this one. This is for you, Marion. All right. Straight Road Productions 2037 wins. Yay! You have no idea how fortunate you are to have that book. And say that with all seriousness. I know I've been a little goofy this week, but that's how I deal with stress, is by being goofy. It's an incredible book. Once you start reading it, you will not put it down, and you will use it as a reference for many, many years to come. So congratulations. Send an email to Liz, L-I-Z, at taxi.com, and send her your mailing address, your phone number, and she will then get the book out to you. You should probably have it in your hands in about a week. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to put those tracks together and to send them to me. Congratulations, all the excellent composers. And just, I want to mention, because we've got a few minutes here, the Road Rally's coming up in like 6 months or something. And this is the time of year where I start working on it. It's our free conference. Every Taxi member gets 2 free tickets to come to this conference. Look, I own the company. I'm kind of partial to it, but we put a tremendous amount of effort into putting the education under your nose that you actually need. Not what we want to have said, but what you want to know. And people like Steve Barden teach classes. They sit on panels. They do one-to-one mentoring. They're part of the Eat and Greet Luncheon. And as I said, the Southwest has a sale right now. Yeah, well, don't buy any tickets on Spirit Airlines, because I hear those are going really cheap. I could even come up with an airline pun when necessary. Anyway, my point is, thank you, Steve. My point is that people just give I don't know, it's like I had somebody the other day, a Taxi member, has been a member for many, many years. He's probably in his 70s, I'm guessing, by his career that he described to me. And he goes, I'm not coming. I live on the East Coast. It's like, dude, we have people that fly in from all over the world for the Road Rally. People cry at the end of the weekend. They learn so much. They made such great friends. They, more than anything, they networked so easily that they met other people to collaborate with, which got these new people into libraries because they did something the more experienced, better connected person doesn't do. Now they're collaborating, and newbie gets to ride in on the coattails of the experienced person. Not in a bad way. That's how stuff happens. So I am the second to last set of eyes on the member success stories before they go in the newsletter every month. And I swear to you, it's like 50% of the people that are getting placements say, oh, yeah. And I met this library owner at the bar at the road rally. I met this library owner because they were sitting next to me watching a panel. I met this library owner because I got them as my mentor for a one-to-one at the road rally, which is free at the road rally, by the way. Other conventions charge 35 to 50 bucks for 15 minutes with a mentor. We give you the best mentors in the industry, and they're free. So, you know what? To the gentleman who I liked and I respect, and I'm sorry to have to call you out on this, not by name, that's the weakest excuse I've heard in a long time. I don't want to do well in my career because I'm too damn cheap to buy a $400 plane ticket and spend 3 nights at a really nice hotel. My career doesn't matter $1,000 worth of investment to me. But yet people run out and they buy a new guitar for a couple $1,000s. They buy a new keyboard for a couple $1,000s. And I've been in the music industry for over 50 years. For real. Like the real actual music industry. For over 50 years. And in those 50 plus years, I have yet to ever meet a guitar or a keyboard that got anybody a record deal or a check. So the road rally is where you want to be. This is going to be the 30th one. I'm going to make it awesome. Yeah, 30th road rally. I was thinking, you know what? I'd love to get a little info. I'm having a really hard time coming up with. Yeah, I hate it. Every time we reach out to celebrity people to be the keynote, they all say stuff like, yeah, it sounds great. I'd love to do it. Hit me up a couple weeks before. I can't hit anybody up a couple weeks before to get a final commitment. And trust me, most of them would flake anyway. I need to know, 2 months before because we have to tell people what they can expect. But I was thinking about this today. What do you guys think about me getting the head of music from like Paramount Studios, the head of music for NBC, and then like vice president or president of a record label, and we have the tough AI music discussion with those three people? Why won't the networks use music that has AI? Hey, Mr. President of Music at Paramount, I've got a good friend who himself is a composer and a music supervisor, told me he makes a ton of music with AI and gets it in TV shows and films all the time. Is anybody checking on that? And so I want to ask the questions that nobody else is asking. Do you guys think that's a good opener? Positive feedback. Good. All right. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking of right now. I've still got a few months to nail it down. But I mean, I've done stuff about AI before and got some great stuff up there. But let's face it, library owners wish they could take AI music, although they'd rather see real musicians make the music because it feels better and sounds better and keeps musicians employed. But no library wants to be the canary in the coal mine that gets busted by a network because they will take a bullet for everybody else in the industry and their company will be gone. So they can't risk it. Yet, I've got to tell you, I got an email. I was copied on an email yesterday from somebody who runs listings with Taxi and has been trained by us to screen their own material, not in the library industry, in the record industry side of things. Very well connected in the record industry. And this lady wrote to us and said, you would not believe the number of submissions that were clearly AI, even though the listings all say no AI. People just don't give a damn. Do you think that people in the industry can't hear it or couldn't use an AI detector, which are getting better and better every week? And she closed out the email by saying, you should let your people know that if I bust them and anybody else busts them, that they won't have a career in the music industry. And we're not doing it to be snotty or jerky about it. We're doing it because we don't want to get busted either. So just saying, guys, if you think that you can sneak a little AI in and you're being crafty by doing that, you're not. You're risking your entire career. So they're climbing down now off my soapbox. Steve, any thoughts on AI from you, being both a composer and now a library owner?
It's an uphill battle. We just don't know where it's going to go. Of course, I'm against it, and I make all my composers be against it. And if they want to do AI music, then they're not going to write for me. But we just don't know where it's going.
Yeah, it's hard because you want to allow the good aspects of AI that can be legitimate tools to be used as tools, not to supplant or replace anybody or anything. But there's a very fat gray line between generated stuff versus using it as a tool, and people will cross that Rubicon. I can't think of any witty analogies right now. It's just, yeah, if you've got AI open and you're using it because you want to come up with a rhyme for faded, is that sinful to do that? Should you sit there and struggle? Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed, but you know what? Now you got the word faded in your lyric, and you say, hey, ChatGPT or whatever form of AI, can you make this? What would you do if you were working on this lyric? And now you've crossed into, the devil's hearth, because now your lyric has been through AI from top to bottom, and maybe 30% of the words in that lyric were generated by AI. But you innocently started out looking for a rhyme for one word, using it as a tool. So, yeah, I agree with you, Steve. It's like, it's going to end up somewhere until it does.
The industry for original music might be dead in 5 years, but I'm still going to write music no matter what, even if it's just for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm an artist and I'm going to write music. That's all I can do.
Anyway, yeah, I get it. I hope that we come to a day where artists can use certain aspects of AI as tools to become even better artists. Look, if somebody comes up with a better paintbrush for an artist, people want to use it. People use
You're really bringing me down, man.
People use drum machines. They use horn samples. They use string samples. All that stuff. So who knows? All I know is that right now, you would be very unwise to try and sneak in any AI stuff. And look at that. AI took me 2 minutes and 27 seconds over time. With that, I bid you a fond farewell. Steve, seriously, I really appreciate the effort, the time, all the test runs you did with me, and enjoy that martini. I'm 3 olives behind you, buddy.
All right.
Thank you.
Anytime, Michael.
Thank you. Steve Barden, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week, and start thinking of stuff for Ask Michael Anything. Bye-bye.